Ever wondered why your chapatis turn out dry? Well, let me show you a few tricks on how to get the soft, fluffy, and layered chapatis. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, welcome to Evolve with Natu. My name is Natu. If this is the first time you're tuning in, welcome aboard. Karibu sana. We love having you here. If you're a returning viewer and or subscriber, thank you so much. Asante sana. Your support means a lot to me. Today, I am delighted to be sharing my very first series of my favorite recipes, sharing my favorite foods and recipes that I'm going to be experimenting with. And what a better way to start this series than sharing one of my absolute favorite foods to eat and to make, East African chapatis. So if this is the first time you're hearing about chapatis, these are soft, flaky, and slightly crispy flatbreads that are a staple in many East African households: Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda. First, well, I'll list the ingredients and you'll see them in the description and also on the screen here on the video. This is all for the ingredients that you're going to need for today, at least for this first step of mixing these ingredients to knead the dough. So to start with, we're going to grab a large mixing bowl and add our flour. So I add my flour as I measure it. And then once you add your flour, you're going to sprinkle in the sugar and the salt. I should admit that I usually eyeball my sugar and salt because I've been cooking chapatis for a little while. Same for the flour. This is probably the first time I'm measuring it because I'm recording this session. But normally I just sprinkle an amount that I think will be sufficient to get me however number of chapatis that I want. So once you mix your dry ingredients, which is your flour, your 5 cups of flour, your tablespoon of salt, and your 1.5 tablespoon of sugar, you're going to either use a whisk, a spoon, or even your hands, which is what I am doing. You're going to thoroughly mix the dry ingredients together. This step helps to evenly distribute the sugar and the salt thoroughly on the flour. Once you do mix them, you usually mix them for a minute up to 2, at most 3 if you want to be fancy, and then you move to your next step, adding your wet ingredients. We're going to add the mixture of butter and ghee. So this is 3 tablespoons of a combination of melted butter and melted ghee and salted butter. I cannot stress that enough because you already have salt. If you use a salted butter, it's going to make it more salty. You're going to pour this mixture of your butter and your ghee into the flour mixture. Now, using your fingers, you're going to gently rub the butter and ghee into the flour. You want to mix it thoroughly, breaking any lumps until the flour feels slightly grainy. This step and this fat in particular is one of the few reasons that gives your chapati a signature soft and flaky texture. Now onto our final step of preparation, we are going to be adding warm water. This is 2 cups of warm water, but we're going to be doing it gradually. We'll start pouring a little at a time while mixing it with your hands as I'm doing it here. We're going to keep going until the dough starts becoming together into a soft, pliable ball. At this point, I usually move mine and start kneading it on a flat surface. If you feel your dough is dry, add a little bit of water. I prefer to add a mixture of water and oil, or sometimes oil, but some people prefer water. If you find it sticky, sprinkle a little bit of flour. I also like to add a little bit of oil. I find oil just seems to solve most of my problems. But yes, so a mixture of water and oil. If it's dry, if it's sticky, flour, and if it's not too sticky, I just add oil instead because the flour can harden it. And then you start kneading the dough, and you will knead it for at least 5 to 10 minutes. The first step of preparation, that is. Now the final step of preparation, to enhance the elasticity and the softness, we are going to be adding 2 tablespoons of the melted butter and ghee, or your oil of choice. You're going to massage it in your already shaped dough. Massage it into the dough for about 1 to 3 minutes. I find that this steps makes a huge difference in achieving the soft and layered chapatis. Once your dough is well mixed, I usually use a saran wrap or an aluminium foil, and some people usually don't wrap it with anything, but I find when you wrap it, it helps to infuse the oils together. So I wrap it up and then I place it in a bowl, and then I cover it in a kitchen towel. And typically recommend to let it rest for at least an hour. But in all honesty, the longer it rests, the softer and easier it will be to work with your dough. And your chapatis will be way softer, trust me. I like to knead it again for about a minute up to 3, just to wake up the gluten. And then once I knead it, I usually eyeball the amount of round balls that I want to create. So I divide the dough into round balls. Depending on how thick you like your chapatis, I like mine a little bit thicker, not too thin, not too thick. So this recipe could give you anywhere from 6 to 8 chapatis. And once I divide these balls, I lightly dust my workspace with flour. This helps prevent sticking when we roll out the dough. So some people usually have a rolling pin and when I call it a board. In Swahili we call it kibao cha kusukumia. I cannot find the English word for it. It's a round shaped board that you roll your chapatis on, but because I already have a flat surface, I don't typically use the round rolling space. Anyways, let's get back to the recipe. Now we're going to roll out each ball into a nice round circle. Even though I should admit, in this particular step, I don't really care how round my chapatis are. For me, it's just making sure that they are thin as possible. And I've tried rolling pins from different parts of the world, but the rolling pins from Tanzania just does the trick. They do the trick. And I find they can help me achieve whichever shape I want to achieve, the rounder and the thinner. But then again, I've been using this rolling pin. I've had this rolling pin, I think, for at least 15 years or 20 years. I haven't changed it. Maybe it's time to change it, but I feel like if I change it, it's gonna lose the magic. Anyways, back to the recipe. So once we're rolled out, and I spread the thin layer of melted butter and ghee on top, usually a tablespoon. This step is also very important to getting soft and layered chapatis that stay soft for days. After that, I stretch out the dough slightly before folding it over. I find this technique helps to create the beautiful flaky layers while frying it. And while I was doing this, my darling Aari, my very handsome nephew, I have 2 handsome nephews, him and his older brother, but his older brother was sleeping. They both love making chapatis, or the preparations of making chapatis. So Aari happened to be at work and he wanted to be part of the fun. So I had to scoop him up and bring him up to the counter, let him sit there while I make my chapatis, or roll out the dough. And you could clearly tell he wanted to play with it, because that's one of his ideas of fun. But yeah, we're not having it. And hygiene police, please don't come for me. The place was clean and nobody was injured or harmed while making these chapatis, and nobody was sick afterwards. Let's get back to the chapatis. So once all the dough is rolled and folded, I usually cover my chapatis with a kitchen cloth and let them rest for another 30 to 45 minutes before rolling them out again. On to our final step. So now the dough has rested, and now it's time to cook our chapatis. So I usually start by rolling out my chapatis one at a time. Some people will just roll them and cook them, but I just like to roll all of them out. In this particular stage, I'm very, very particular in ensuring that the chapatis are round. If they come with any sorts, and this has been a method that I've perfected over the years, they were not always this perfect, trust me. but over the years I've somehow managed to ensure that they're round and they are just soft to my own perfection. And neither am I competing to be the world's best chapati maker, but I think I hold my own. So I roll them out until I think now we have 8 or 9. I'm not looking at the screen, but I think that's approximately how many chapatis we have today. And then once I'm done rolling them, I usually heat my pan, and I usually use this flat pan to make chapatis in a medium-low heat. I also grab a mixture of melted butter, unsalted butter that is, ghee, and I also add a little bit of vegetable oil for frying. And once the frying pan or the pan is heated a little bit, I usually test it with my hands. I would put my first chapati and I let it sit for like 30 seconds to a minute. When I start seeing the light bubbles, we flip it over and we brush the oil. So some people usually brush, but I couldn't find my brush today, so I just use a spoon instead. They both do a better job, but I find the brush does a better job more than a spoon. And I'll repeat the same process, flipping it every minute or two, adding a touch of oil each time until both sides have developed a beautiful golden brown color with slightly crispy edges. And I like to fold them in the process, just so that I can test and see once people eat them, are they going to be foldable? Is that the word? Yes. And once I've done cooking each chapati, I move it to a plate and I cover it with either a plate or a clean towel. In this case, I was using a plate. Some people prefer a towel because they stay moist. Some people prefer a plate. Either way, I find mine usually just stay moist. And this process of frying these chapatis took me at least 15-20 minutes, but the whole process usually takes me 3 to 4 hours depending on how many chapatis I have. Longer than that if I'm cooking a large quantity of chapatis. Now, for those of you who do not know much about chapatis, these chapatis can be perfect with tea, stew, chicken, beef, or even on their own. And I forgot to mention even beans. In Tanzania, we like to eat our chapatis with beans too. They're a staple for breakfast. Some people eat them for lunch. Some people eat them for dinner. You can eat them any time of the day. If you try this recipe, let me know how it turns out in the comment section. I'd like to see how you cook yours. And if you tried this recipe, how did it work for you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more delicious recipes and lifestyle content from Evolve with Natu. Now let's go eat some chapatis. Until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. Happy cooking and see you on the next video. Bye-bye.